Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
We're delighted you're here with us. We broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And if you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Patrick is engineering the broadcast today at GCN in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli, and today we have Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick. Good morning, Doctor.
It's pleasant to always work with you.
It's delightful hearing your voice and being with you side by side on the broadcast, Rick. And we've got with us today Guineith Isaacs. She's live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
And you're not kidding about morning, 1 a.m., right?
It's 1 a.m., just after 1 a.m. here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for being with us. You know, last week, Dr. Richard Allen Miller had some questions, and I thought, there are two people who would be able to help him, and Guineith Isaacs is one. And so, Rick, you had some questions about names, ownership, things that have happened.
I wanted a better definition of maritime law. I'm sorry I missed Miles's calls, plural. I've been extremely busy and would have very much enjoyed talking with him. But let's go forward. I'd like to know more about this, please.
Okay.
Guineith, you're on.
Okay. Maritime law was originally set up probably several, about 300-400 years ago. And the idea of maritime law was there was a really, really big problem at that time with piracy. And the Americas had been discovered by white people not long before. And there were some pretty important trade routes had been established between the old world and the new world. And the commodities that were on these trade routes, they were valuable, including slaves, including things like sugar, and including things like spices, chocolate, various commodities. And, there were a lot of people who weren't very satisfied with their financial lot in life, and they thought that a good way to improve that was to go stealing it from somebody else. And so there was a really, really big piracy problem. And this was especially pirates of the Caribbean, okay? And so, and also one country would go robbing the ships of another country. Like, for instance, Sir Francis Drake is considered to be a wonderful naval hero by the English, but by the Spanish, he's flat out considered to be a pirate. And it worked both ways. Anyway, the Vatican could see that this was going to lead to war quite quickly, and so it set up a series of what are called maritime laws, or laws of the sea, okay, which included that all maritime vessels had to be registered, and ultimately that registration traced its way back to the Vatican, still traces its way back to the Vatican. And at that time, basically the world was split in two. And according to what part of the world you were born in, or what part of the world your ship was from, you were from Spain or you were from Portugal. Too bad about the English. And there wasn't any, well, too bad if you were an emerging American too. But that was a key part of the, maritime law, was to prevent piracy. And you could see that there would be a reason for it, for registering vessels under that situation. But the thing is, it was always only meant to apply on the sea. Then somebody had a brilliant idea that we ought to apply this on the land as well, because it's actually a pretty good way of controlling people. And piracy was never 100% wiped out, of course, but the states of various countries, and they could, in the end, they recognized you could register your vessel in any port. It didn't have to be a Spanish vessel or a Portuguese vessel. It's just, those were the two biggest, strongest Catholic countries at the time, and England didn't count because it wasn't Catholic. Okay, they'd already had the Henry VIII Church of England thing, and that's why they weren't included in the initial carve-up. But, they were a considerable maritime power, and the Vatican recognized eventually that they would have to include them. And so that's how it is that your port of origin had to be recorded, the name of your vessel, the type of your vessel, how many crew it was capable of carrying, and so on and so forth, and that your ship was required to keep a log. Okay? The problem comes for human liberty when those maritime laws get applied to dry land, which should never, ever, ever happen. Okay? Because you're not a pirate, and I'm not a pirate. But when they go applying maritime law by requiring that our motor vehicles be registered and that we be registered as the captains of our motor vehicles, what they're saying by us not registering our motor vehicles and by us not, declaring ourselves to be licensed drivers of motor vehicles, they are saying that we are pirates. That's what they're saying. And you can discern this. If you ever get pulled up before a court on traffic charges, they even call it traffic. If you go to Black's Legal Dictionary, okay, and look up the word traffic, the word traffic means, how do they put it? They put it something like traveling in a commercial manner, okay, or traveling in the course of, distributing goods or services or something like that. Basically, it has the idea of what we would normally think of trafficking, trafficking. That's, as in smuggling, which is and carrying commodities on the ocean, not in a registered vessel, is called smuggling. Okay? You're not supposed to do it. And they say that's why it's called traffic law, is they want to say that if we are driving around in an unregistered vehicle, in the course of doing what we need to do, and ourselves not being registered either, that we are trafficking, as in we are smuggling. That's how serious it is.
Okay, what distinguishes the difference between a horse and an automobile?
Well, actually nothing, because
what kind distinguishes walking?
This is the ridiculousness
well,
of it.
I'm running
nothing.
it down to you
That's
because
why.
There's a reason. There's a reason I'm running it down.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking, what's the difference between walking and riding or, yeah.
Under that reasoning, because in parts of the world, actually there was a horse and buggy registration before there were motor vehicles in some parts of the world. Now, this is why I say it's a huge threat to human liberty. Okay? In Australia, actually, you are required to identify yourself to the police at any time, even if you're just walking. And it's if you are found out and about in an intoxicated state, you can actually be arrested for walking. Okay, because it's it's absolutely ridiculous. But the thing is, it's very easy to ascertain in a court. If you are sitting in a court that has maritime law on dry land, and that is that your national flag will have a gold fringe, okay? And if any of your supposed officers of law are actually operating as naval officers, okay, or maritime law officers, then their flag or on their uniform will have a gold fringe. That's a code. It means maritime law, admiralty law operates here. Admiralty law should never operate on dry land. It's a huge threat to liberty of ordinary humans on dry land.
Yeah, Guineith Isaacs is with us, and Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We're talking about maritime law, admiralty law. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, docram.com, DOCRAM.com for his Facebook page, richardallenmiller.com for his website, richardalanmiller.com for the website. And Guineith Isaacs is with us, and you can contact Guineith by going to usaprepares.com, click on the instructors tab, and take you right to a link for Guineith Isaacs' Facebook page as well. Guineith, please continue. You're talking about admiralty law, maritime law.
Okay, right. So, and a case in point is Victoria Police, where I live now. This is not Victoria, British Columbia. This is Victoria, Australia, okay? Just so that everybody knows, because I live in the state of Victoria in Australia. They have, if you ever have a supposed traffic infringement, I'm using their words, okay? They have an Office of Traffic and Crime. So they want to say that if you're going 3-5 kilometres an hour over the speed limit, that you're now a criminal. That's how blatant they are. They want to turn everybody into a criminal, because then they have power over us. Then, if they can convince us all that we are criminals and they are the ones who are the law enforcement, that means that we are no longer a free people and that they are lords over us. That's what they want to do. Plain and simple. I think that's it in the bag, Vincent. It doesn't get any simpler than that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what the purpose of the application of maritime law and admiralty law to traffic, so-called, on dry land is. In a nutshell, that is the purpose for it. That is the reason for it. It's a total scam. It's designed to enslave you, to enslave me, to enslave everybody and impoverish us and turn us all into criminals in their eyes so that they have the right to tell us what to do.
Okay, let's go to another question then in relationship. What exactly is a birth certificate?
It's a certificate of registration of a slave. Basically, if you're
under
a
maritime law.
Yeah, because it's you. The thing is, okay, I have heard interpretations of it like this, that it's the registration of a vessel, okay, your body being the vessel.
Like that's walking.
Okay.
Walking from A
for
to B.
walking around, for your soul to walk around from A to B. That's one interpretation that I have heard of it. There's another interpretation that I would rather, I think is probably equally as valid, and that is, if you're a slave, you have to be registered on somebody's books somewhere. Someone has to have ownership of you. Okay, so there must be a register somewhere of a list of slaves and who they are owned by.
So Social Security is the possibility of an indentured servant winning freedom. How does that work? Loaning land, something?
Okay, now, Social Security number, okay, is basically another extortionate slavery racket where you can't do legitimate business unless your business is registered with the government. There's a huge problem with this, and that is this, okay? Maritime law is still administered by the Vatican, okay? The Vatican has another law on its books, which it is also supposed to administer, and that is called, we'll get back to that after the break because I can hear the music coming up. Okay, so
talking about maritime law
again.
and admiralty law, and topic now is birth certificate. Fascinating. We'll be right back. We're talking about birth certificates, certificate of ownership. Guineith, please continue.
Okay. There is another Vatican law, okay, and it's actually a higher law than the law of the sea, and that is the Rome Statutes of the International Criminal Court. Okay, anybody can go on the internet and download a copy of the Rome Statutes of the International Criminal Court. Okay, and slavery is flat out mentioned as being a criminal offence, an international war crime. Okay. So, like I said, registration is a key part. Registration of the, what they call registration of the person, which is, things like birth certificates, registration of motor vehicles, registration of driver's licenses, various other licenses, building codes. It seems you can't scratch your rear end in a lot of parts of the world without asking the government's permission first. Registration of businesses. Whose business is it anyway, quite literally? You know? and they try to make out that we are in contraband, okay, meaning that we are pirates if we don't want to register. Well, guess what? I'm not a slave. And you're not a slave. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is not a slave. Only slaves are really required to ask their owners for permission before they go and do something like, travel from one place to another, to earn a bit of extra income.
So, what does it mean then when various states in the United States are now requiring you to carry a passport in order to travel from one state to another, whereas
it's
other
slavery.
states do not? Like Oregon does not, yet Washington is required by law. Why?
Yeah. Well, I would go looking at the colour on the map of which states are requiring you to carry your passport or driver's license or whatever wherever you go, and I could just about guarantee that'd be Democrat states. Washington voted Democrat. Washington State, that is, from my recollection of the electoral map, the entire West Coast voted Democrat in the last election, including, this is just my memory, it may be flawed, Washington State, Oregon, and New York. New York did, but, California. And you know something? Democrat means communist. And every communist system on earth is into the enslavement of its people and ultimately the theft of the property of its people and the death of its people, and that is why they want you to be registered. They want your firearms to be registered. They want your business to be registered, and they want your dog to be registered, and they want your car to be registered, and they want you to be registered as the driver of your vehicle. Black's Legal Dictionary says that a driver is somebody engaged in the operation of a motor vehicle in the course of commerce and trade. Okay? If you're not in commerce and trade and you're operating a motor vehicle, then you have got a driverless vehicle. You could quite literally say that in a court of law and ask the judge to look it up in Black's Legal Dictionary, and they... he will probably lose his temper at you, actually, because they're all bought and paid for anyway. But this is it's all about enslavement.
Here's something that there's an article called travelandleisure.com, and it's posted December 17th, 2016. And it says, beginning January 22nd, 2018, travelers from 9 states will no longer be able to travel with only their driver's licenses. Residents of Kentucky, Maine, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Washington will have to use alternate ID forms, passport, military ID, or permanent resident card to pass TSA security checkpoints, even for domestic travel. So there you have it.
It's all enslavement. They want to make us out to be the criminals so that they can enslave us.
So what is...
And so that we are no longer free humans.
What is the absolute correct way of approaching the situation while you're traveling and are challenged?
Okay. I would absolutely recommend you, I know it's not easy, but try and stay calm. Okay? Say that under Article under the United Nations International Declaration of Human Rights, you have the common law right to travel. Okay? It's just flat out declared. And you're exercising that international human right. And pretty well, it has to be a pretty bad law enforcement where they are not required under their oath to uphold your human rights.
Well, Missouri's going to be right in there. I know because I've been to Missouri and I witnessed it firsthand. So I'm concerned.
I've been there myself. Okay.
I went to Chicago.
They probably won't listen to you. They'll probably still write you an infringement notice. Okay. But just say that you refuse to consent to contract with them, that they are attempting to enslave you, that they are attempting to infringe your internationally recognized human rights. And
to go to a hospital, to go to your family, to go
you're
to...
You're not in traffic.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to say. If you want to travel without their permission, just say you are traveling, you are not in traffic, you are not the driver of the vehicle according to Black's Legal Dictionary, because you are just traveling from one place to another. You are not in traffic. You are not the driver of your vehicle under the definition of Black's Legal Dictionary. And every court of law in the English-speaking world holds to Black's Legal Dictionary to be the definition of all legal terms. And that's whether you're in Canada, Australia, England, the United States, anywhere in the English-speaking world. That is the law that applies. And they have some very unique definitions for words. And if you are going to do this, then it pays to either have it bookmarked on your phone, or better still, even if you carry a copy of it, you can obtain a printed copy of it. You probably couldn't have all of it in the car with you, but I think they have a condensed version. Have it in, just pull out the condensed version and say, would you like me to look it up? That would probably really annoy the cop, okay? And that's
but what about the individual that is not educated in this, that makes the arrest on you, and then you're delayed? And delay, is that sue? Can you actually sue them by law because Okay.
Because that, for one thing, they're infringing your human rights. They've wrongfully arrested you, okay? And I would absolutely be suing for damages, okay? Having been in that situation myself, okay, they have no right to interfere in your life when all you're doing is going about your private business. And like I say, even if you are traveling in the course of your work, and even if you are carrying commodities for sale, which you have legitimately produced, okay, under the laws of piracy, they have no right to stop your vehicle, okay, and to deprive you of the commodities that you have worked hard for. That's called piracy. Okay?
Well, they do that with weapons. They confiscate weapons, even though the arrest is illegal.
That's piracy.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. If they want to operate on maritime law on dry land, let's put them into maritime law on dry land. Say, you want to operate on maritime law? You want to stop me from going about my lawful business? Well, all I'm trying to do is operate, I've got a market to get to, and 50 cactuses in the back, let's say, because that's what I farm. I grow Indian fig cactuses, echinocereus cactuses, a bunch of other cactuses. And then when I had a motor vehicle, I was taking them to market, and I was earning myself maybe $100 or $120, this is Australian dollars, a day on market day. And I've had to do without that income because of their freaking interference. It's really, really, really awful, you know. I can't do it safely. And it's so bad. This is how bad it is, okay? That I was with a friend, and he was transporting me home with some fence posts and wire, some young chickens, and we saw a police car coming the other way.
Gwyneth, we're going into a commercial.
After the break.
We're going into a break. Gwyneth, why don't you hold that thought, and we'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Gwyneth Isaacs is with us live in Australia, and we're talking about admiralty law, maritime law, birth certificates. And Patrick, will I be able to take calls without disconnecting Gwyneth? Okay. Yeah, I do. Okay. So, Dylan in Indiana, welcome. You're on the air with Gwyneth Isaacs and Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you 5 by 5.
Pertaining to suing government officials, you have to bring them out as a man or woman. And you take them into a claims court in the United States, or in Canada and Australia and England, there's a court called the Queen's Bench Court. And it's basically a man against a man, and lawyers cannot come into those two courts.
Okay. Gwyneth, are you familiar with this?
I haven't heard of I have heard of the Queen's Bench, but I'm not sure. You see, the departments of justice here in Australia are all totally corrupted, okay? There may well be a Queen's Bench court, okay? But if there is, they don't like to tell people about it. That's probably why. But what you can do is you can file a civil action against them, basically a claim for damages, okay? And you would do that, as far as I know, in Victoria. Civil matters are heard by the district court, okay? And in Victoria, the district court is located in Melbourne, and that is for the whole of Victoria. And I think it's a similar situation in other states of Australia, and that's a court of civil claims. Now, the Queen's Bench, I would say, would be a very, very good place, because as far as I know, that's a panel of judges, right? So you don't just have a judge and a jury, which here in Australia the situation is that the juries are all terrified of the judges. The judges overstep their mark and they tell the jury what to do. I'm not sure how common that is in the United States. But you need to, I absolutely agree, you need to sue the individual officer for damages, okay? And you need to issue the officer with a claim for civil damages, okay? Which is basically an infringement notice issued against the the officer himself or herself. And if you can't find out where they live, it's perfectly legitimate to send it to the workplace. You know where they work. They work for the police. So you send it to the care of for instance, Victoria Police, and because the claim for damages was with relation to their work. But you have to be specific. You have to say how they have infringed your human rights. which with regards to travel is very, very easy because you just cite, you go on the internet and you look up which of the articles of the, International Declaration of Human Rights has, I think it's number 13, but I might be wrong. I'm going from memory here.
Guineith, we're going into the top of the hour. Are you able to stay with us?
Absolutely, yep. Love to.
Okay, great. Dylan, did you want to hold through the top of the hour break?
Yes, I'll hold.
Great. And when we come back, Dylan, I'd like to ask you, do you have firsthand experience with this?
Okay.
Okay. So Dylan's holding. He's in Indiana.
I'd like you to be sure to look at your email from me.
Okay, very good. We'll be right back, class. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. We've got Dr. Richard Allen Miller with us. We've got Guineith Isaacs with us live in Australia. And we've got Dylan calling in from Indiana. And we were talking about traveling with chickens and fence posts at the end of the last hour. Guineith, please continue.
Yes, that's right. There's a local yokel who lives not very far from where we do. And he was, I bought some pullets off him, young layer hens off him. And he was assisting me to get them home. Okay? And I had also bought some fence posts, and I'd bought some fencing wire earlier on in the day from another shop, and I'd asked them if they could deliver the fencing wire to his shop. And, we had arranged that he was going to help me with some transport home because the local corrupt cartel gang of pirates around here has made it so unsafe for me that it's not safe for me to travel using my own motor vehicle. That's really how bad it is. And anyway, we were in his farm truck. He is also a local farmer. And with the, commodities that I had just purchased, which was now my property, was no longer a commodity. It was my property, and he was helping me to get my own property to my own home. Okay? So it was no longer a commodity. It was my own property. And anyway, we were driving down the road, and we saw coming up along the other way a police car. And I said to myself, oh, this will be trouble. But that police car went going in the opposite direction, passed us by, didn't do a U-turn, didn't turn around, okay? But silly me. If you must travel with a mobile phone, make sure that it's turned off or put into airplane mode, okay? Silly me, I don't think I had my phone off or in airplane mode. And he said, we went to my property, which was about, it was about 40 kilometres. But in this part of the world, that's considered to be just down the road, okay? And we dropped the stuff off, and he went back to his own place, and on the way back, guess what? The local branch of the pirates, a blue team, pulled him over and accused him of driving an unregistered vehicle. And the officer that it was has been one of the main ones who has been harassing me. And these days, because of the sexual abuse allegations, they're not allegations, they're just fact, okay, that, I have been vocal about regarding them, usually they send the female officer to deal with me, which doesn't make things any better. Because, do you know something? I think I've got a nickname for this woman, and I think I'll start calling her Meryl. And you know who Meryl was, or is? Meryl Streep. And apparently Meryl Streep was the procurer of, victims for this other guy who's been getting into trouble lately and telling everybody what a wonderful guy he is, with pedophilia. What's his name? He's been all over the news the last few weeks.
Talking about Weinstein?
And her name's, that's him.
You're talking about Harvey Weinstein?
Harvey Weinstein, yeah. And it's come out that Meryl Streep's the procurer of victims for Harvey Weinstein. She's, she says, he can get you jobs, yada, 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 yada. And in reality, she's just the Renfield. She's the procurer for Harvey Weinstein. So I think I'll call this woman Joy Merrill in the future. And her name is Joy Jenkins. I'm not saying that she has anything to do with pedophilia, by the way, not that I know of, although the people, that the male officers around here are definitely involved in sexual abuse of local women, and issuing them with huge infringement notices and letting them off if they provide an evening's entertainment. And I have never taken them up on their offer, but I've heard from other women who live in the district that they are not gentle in their entertainment. Okay? They are violent. It's entertainment for them, not for you. Okay? Anyway, this woman, Joy Jenkins, was the cop who pulled my friend over and accused him of having an unregistered motor vehicle on his way back to town. And you know something? You'd say, oh, well, that's just a coincidence. But this is happening every second and third time, when I get friends helping me out with transport. That's just not a coincidence anymore when it happens that often. I'm disgusted with it. I'm so fed up with it. These people are evil, in a nutshell.
Dylan,
it's got to stop.
Dylan, do you have any comments? Dylan in Indiana, do you have any comments?
Well, again, she has to find out about Queen's Bench, and there's a guy on the internet, broadmind.org. Carl Lintz, Lentz, and he's been in England and Canada and went into Queen's Bench quite a few times.
Yeah, I think here they might call it the full bench of the High Court of Australia.
No, it's called Queen's Bench, period. They hide it.
I think that
they hide it totally. And civil and equity courts, you're guilty in a civil equity court. In a common law court or a Queen's Bench court, if you haven't harmed anybody, you're innocent. And I carry a notice with me. I, a man, am here, require to bring a man or woman forward to make a claim that I have done a wrong. No man or woman comes forward with a claim or with a bill, discharge your complaint, or else I, a man, claim wrong of trespass. That's your case.
Yep.
In the Queen's Bench Court or Claims Court. And they've trespassed against you. Once you get a case number, you can put anything underneath that. You put Exhibit A, which is the police report, whatever. And you can find out the name of the man or woman by the police report. They signed it. They signed the ticket. And that's who you bring into court.
The thing is,
not in a civil court or a Queen's court. Can I talk to Dr. Miller for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Dr. Miller, I sent you an email last week about common law in the United States, and I put my address and my phone number in there and asked you to call me. It's under Alan, A-L-A-N, Sahara, S-A-H-A-R-A, if you want to look up your email list. And it was off of your website that I sent the email. Dr. Miller there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did you get my name,
Did
Alan?
you hear that, Rick?
I'm sorry, sir?
Did you hear what...
I'm not understanding either of you now. What's going on?
A-L-A-N-S-A-H-A-R-A.
Oh, okay, Andy. Thank you.
And look up your email list and call me.
All right.
But the thing is, in the United States, there's it's part of the Articles. Article 13, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude exists. Slavery has been abolished, which I don't know if that's the same in Australia. But I carry around a fee schedule with me, and it's a notice, and I wrote out a fee schedule. Anybody wants to talk to me, I charge them money because slavery has been abolished.
Yep. Here in Australia...
Look up broadmind.org, Carl Lentz, L-E-N-T-Z. And like I say...
Is that Carl with a C or Carl with a K?
K-A-R-L-L-E-N-T-Z. But his website is broadmind.org.
Okay. I'll tell you what, if you could, do you have Facebook?
No, I don't. I'm lucky I do email.
I'll tell you what we'll do.
No, that's
Dylan,
fine.
Dylan,
I'll tell you what.
Dylan,
if you could email that link to me, get the details, get my email details off
Just
Vincent.
broad mind, like he thinks of women all the time when he was younger. Mind.org.
Yeah.
Carl, please do me a favor, Carl. leave Carl, leave your number, leave your telephone number with our engineer, okay, Patrick? And during this break. I appreciate you being on the air with us, Dylan, and we will call you, okay? So, Dylan, please leave your name and number with Patrick, our engineer. Thanks very much. We'll be right back after these few short commercial announcements with Rick Miller. Okay, we're back. Guineith Isaacs is with us in Australia. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Rick, you sent me some emails. Now, do you want to continue the discussion about Admiralty?
As appropriate. We'll stay with your program. Those are something I wanted you to think about, and maybe we'll talk at a more appropriate time.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Guineith,
you're in charge.
Yeah. Guineith, would you like to share with Rick the situation that you have in Australia with your farm? For example, you've got a farm that you're working. You're an active farmer, and you've decided that you want to be sovereign, and you are not willing to pay taxes to a corporation for real estate. You're not willing to do that. Can you describe that to Rick in our class, please?
Okay. Well, basically, I did some investigation of the, of the legal basis for municipalities in Australia to be charging property taxes. Here, they're called land rates. Okay, but it's the same thing. And I found out that every municipality in Australia is a private corporation. Now, private corporations cannot be government, okay? because that would be fascism, and fascist governments, that's the real definition of fascism, not whatever Webster's has decided to come up with this week or last month or whenever it was that they tried to change the definition of fascism. Mussolini's definition of fascism is the one that really should apply, and that is the merger of state and corporate power. You cannot be a corporation and a government, and that has been British common law for at least the last 400 years. Okay, and you could even stretch it all the way back to the Magna Carta. But the most recent one was the Statute of Monopolies. Well, not the most recent, but one of the most well-known ones, which is still in every Commonwealth country. The Statute of Monopolies is a key piece of common law legislation. And that says that except for a few very, very ancient municipalities, Manchester's one of them, the City of London's one of them, Glasgow's one of them, Birmingham's one of them, and places like Liverpool. These are the only places, okay, that have a corporate municipal government in the English-speaking world. Every other place that says that they have a corporate municipal government, they're lying to you. You do not have to contract with them unless you so choose, okay? And a year or two ago, I would say about 2 years ago, next February, what happened was I got so fed up with my local municipality trying to rob me of my land that I actually seceded from the local municipality and from the state of Victoria. And I said, okay, I'm setting up my own principality. And that led to a lot of mockery for me. People thought that I was, that I had gone off my rocker. I was claiming to be a princess. No, the reason why I claimed to be a princess and the reason why I seceded, okay, was to show you fellas up for the bunch of corrupt, evil people that you are. You are charging people money in an extortionate racket so that they can live on their own freehold land when under the High Court of Australia's precedents, which is Fayot versus the Northern Territory, okay, if anyone wants to look it up, that's FEJO versus Northern Territory NT. And from memory, it's paragraph 11. That was a native title claim that a fellow by the name of Mr. Fayot tried to file against a large part of suburban Adelaide.
Yes.
Tried to claim.
I need to add that, for levity, that Australia was founded on a bunch of penal colony.
It was, but it's now no longer a penal colony.
I know.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and if you'd like to go to his website, richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Rick, you've got a special going on, Metaphysics. Would you share that with us, please?
Oh, thanks for the promo. Yeah, I got my audiobooks are out. I am going to be uploading volumes 4, 5, and 6 as another special to volumes 1, 2, and 3. And I'll send you a review. These audiobooks are way more than just audiobooks. I have large download libraries of the actual references that I quote when I taught metaphysics for AOL. It's a long time ago. It sets a foundation for my new work that will be coming out shortly on pathworking and how to get in touch with your higher self and evolutions of consciousness, how to change this movie. That's what I'm about, and that's what they're about. And I'll send you that review. It's interesting. The guy was blown away with what he actually gets.
That's wonderful. And Rick, if we want to get order that's richardallenmiller.com, right?
I'm sorry, yeah, richardallenmiller.com/shop.
Okay, Richard A-L-A-N Miller MILLER.com /shop.
I just posted a movie from 1948 called The Secret Land with a bunch of famous actors talking about Antarctica. Isn't that interesting? Alan Ladd, rest of them, yeah. It won
Rick, have you seen
an Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature, and it was about a large Antarctic expedition called Operation High Jump, and it was from 1946 to 1947, and I think everybody should watch that old movie. Van Heflin and several others are in it. Talks about exactly what happened.
Okay.
I want to ask, does that book collection have books such as the Book of Seth and the Book of Enoch?
Yes, of course it does. Yes, of course. Including the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, the Colburn Bibles. It goes right down the line. Melchizedek's. Yes, I quote from a number of these things back in the 90s.
Beautiful.
I am actually way more than people realize as a scholar in the field of magic. And magic is the study of altered states of consciousness and how to use them like tools in a toolbox. When I watch an ant pick up 10 times its weight, or a woman doing the same thing by ripping a car door off her to save her daughter in a flaming automobile, how does she do that with the physics of bone not being nearly as strong as steel? And yet everybody has seen that. Everybody says, oh, yeah, adrenaline. What exactly is adrenaline, and what is it exactly doing in the brain? That's what I address.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is this. In my own work of being a psychic, which is what I actually do to generate income, I will often see, even into people's houses, and I will describe the inside of their own house to them from the other side of the world. How's that? And that happens on a routine basis.
Creating universes.
And the houses that they're going to live in, and the landscapes that they're going to move to. And
I understand that.
That might be one in every 50 calls. I get one of these calls that I find myself being projected to a place and being able to remotely view the place and to see where a person lives and to accurately describe that person's own house to them, or another house, or a place that is relevant to the question that they have to ask. And how could I do that if the psychic world and if the magical world was not real? There's no way I could do that. Yeah. So I absolutely understand what you're saying there, Doc Ram.
I'm trying to approach this subject as a scientist. However, I have now become aware of the fact that science and religion are opposite ends of a closed system, and neither are real. What is real is the moment. And that part is where we go from the profane into the sacred. And I would hope to set up a foundation for the entry of a new era where science is now magic, which is advanced physics, with a mystery school. And you'll see Frank Herbert attempting to try to demonstrate that with the Bene Gesserit, the Space Guild, and the Mentats. And they each have a worldview which is consistently different than the other and are able to do things the other cannot. That is our new world.
This is the June books, right?
These are the audio books that are out now audio, they're what they are is metaphysics. In audio, there are 15 courses that I taught over 11 years when PC Link became AOL. And what they wanted me to do was generate a library, download library, that was as valuable as shareware to draw social media interest into these areas. And what I did is I did it by teaching a course quoting from the Book of Enoch or whatever, the Keys of Solomon, the lesser and greater Keys of Solomon, the Secret Teachings of All Ages is on audio book 1 as Manly Palmer Hall, starting with Theosophy and the integration of Eastern thought with Bennett and Gurdjieff and others. This is what I taught for years at Ojai and in Dralea, which was another place I got to meet Pir Vilayat Khan and several other real famous people from the Philippines, and I had, this is where I started my foundation of knowledge base. And today I have an idea of how it all works because we actually have two brains. It's a closed system. And the upper brain, which is divided into two, is like a cavitation process that's being run by the gut. The gut is a habitat, and you are no longer what you eat, but whom you feed. And each of us is uniquely different, and as you become more aware of your part in the whole role of things, if we're different in our belief system, that's God's will. This is the idea of choice and why I am now trying to use altered states of consciousness as actual tools where I can go into this state here, and my ability in guessing is 400 times over where I am in a conscious waking state. There are aborigines, including the islands of Australia and New Zealand, that would suggest that lucid dreaming and certain dream states hold more content to reality than consciousness does. And when I say
I would actually agree with that, because when I was a young lady and a child, I grew up amongst the Maori people at Rotorua in New Zealand. I lived in a suburb which maybe had 2/3 of the population being Maori. And do you know something? I know of particular cases of their whole belief system there is based on a concept of tapu, which is holiness, and funnily enough, noa, which is it's profane, earthly. It also means that which defeats the curse. The idea of holiness has everything to do with you breach that holiness, you're going to die. And the only way out of that is through Noah, which actually directly comes from the ancient word Noah, okay, meaning the guy with the ark, okay, because in ancient Hebrew, the word Noah means he defeats the curse. It has the same meaning in ancient Hebrew as in Maori.
May or not be related to the fourth genome in our blood type, rhesus negative.
But
it goes downhill from there in terms of what I have discovered as a scientist. And what I'm discovering now is none of it's really true. What it is my imagination is really what is driving all of this, and I am only limited by that alone. And man is so wonderful.
This is where we're going.
I'm sorry?
I say this is where we're going.
Yes,
because
that's right. And
they
I'm going to show you how to
They believe this so strongly that their beliefs will kill them. They believe they've breached the tapu. That belief will actually kill them.
So
because
what do you think death is?
Yeah.
And what do you think it is not? You know, there is strong evidence with my mentor, Sir Roger Penrose, that chi, structured water in a microtubule, is how we use our energy or thoughts into matter, psyche into matter. And I'm now going to be doing some comic books on structured water for children, because if we can teach our children these concepts, we will have defeated this Common Core nonsense where kids, the millenniums, don't even know how to use a tape measure. It's an embarrassment. And while it has been overtly purposed with Agenda 21 and the United Nations, I am now essentially declaring autarch, supreme individual sovereignty. And watch how I do it.
Yep. Well, do you know something? This is what it ultimately comes back to, that Jesus Christ said it. It says in the Bible that there's a sword that comes out of Jesus' mouth, and it's called the Word of God. And it's got two edges, okay? And we are made in His image, and our words have power, just like Jesus' words have power, because we are a picture of Him. We are in the image of Him. And the things that we say, as soon as we declare our sovereignty...
relates sound with words.
Hold that thought. We're going into a break. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Guineith Isaacs is with us. And I just have a quick comment to make, and this is regarding a video series I was watching called Vikings. And the king in England is about to sentence the king of the Vikings to death. His name is Ragnar Lothbrok. And so the king of England had a question. Now I'm paraphrasing. And he wanted to know what Ragnar Lothbrok thought about Valhalla. And Ragnar Lothbrok said, I don't believe it, but my people do. And then the king of England asked, what about Christianity, heaven? And Ragnar Lothbrok said, I don't believe it, but your people do. And I was just thinking as I was thinking about this as we look at politicians all over the world. There are two sets of rules. They want us to behave in a certain way that is beneficial to them, and they want us to believe certain things. However, I don't believe they believe the things that they say they believe. And
it's all about domination and control.
Yes, and I just wanted to share that.
There is a hell, but the rules that they have built up around heaven and hell are not necessarily true. There's only one way into heaven, and that's through the shed blood of Jesus Christ. And that is the true Sang Real, meaning Holy Grail. Okay? It's been misinterpreted as Sanct Real, but what it really is Sang Real, which means the royal blood, meaning the royal blood of Jesus Christ, the King of Heaven, shed for the remission of all the evil of all the people of earth. That's the only way into heaven. Heaven is definitely a real place. It's an interdimensional place, but it is definitely real, and it controls what goes on here on this earth. Jesus Christ said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And Kabbalistically, you would say, as above, so below. And this is the true meaning of the Star of David, a triangle pointing upwards and a triangle pointing downwards. As above, so below. Isn't that right, Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
Well, I'm concerned only with the fact that I don't think the truth is out there. I think the truth is in there. In other words...
Well, Jesus also said the kingdom of God is within you.
That's correct. And I'm going to suggest that a Buddhist, for example, could be a Christian, but a Christian could not be a Buddhist. And as such, worldviews and the way you choose to see a scene philosophy allows and closes certain doors. And that's why physics does not have the answers either. Because it's a way of modeling and assumed truths, like the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Is that true or not true?
Well,
we now know that space is curved.
I've just finished trying to construct a fence line across our block.
Well, I'm trying to say something
and it's
regarding
been a one big
fundamentalism over Christianity, as I understand it. And there's one of the reasons why, when they ask me what religion I am, I respond that I'm a Quaker. Now, that means I sit there and quake, because I'm not quite sure how to respond. It's none of their business, and I basically believe in the supreme individual sovereignty of an individual. And I do not need Christianity or the Church of Rome talking to God on my behalf. And so with that said, what is a minister and his purpose for his so-called flock? And now I have further questions about fundamentalism. So when you ask me, is it right or wrong? Yes and no. And that's where the comic book character of me coming in as Two-Face comes in. I'm of two minds of this.
I want to thank you both.
I think we're at the end of the show.
We are. Gwyneth, thank you so much for being with us today. And staying awake.
Very much. Please, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. It's pretty late in Australia. And Rick, thanks so much for being with us.